is that the address be agreed to. And I give the call to the member for Shortland for her final speech in this chamber.
Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Speaker. As you rightly say, this will be my last speech I make in this parliament. And I will start by saying it's been an absolute privilege and honour to represent the people of Shortland for almost 18 years and to contribute to the national political agenda. And it's been an absolute privilege to be part of, and I'll touch this later too, the Labor caucus, and to have my colleagues here with me in the chamber, and to have my 3 colleagues from the Hunter here, and to have Pat Conroy, who will be the next member for Shortland, and I'll talk more about that later in my contribution to this debate. No, different shoes. That's what we tell everybody, different shoes. I thank the people of Shortland for the trust they've placed in me and for their friendship, and I thank everybody in this parliament on both sides for their friendship over the time. The Labor Party. I joined the Labor Party back in 1975 when Gough Whitlam was sacked. First time I voted for Labor, and I felt that my vote had absolutely been ignored. I felt that it was wrong that a Governor-General could decide who the Parliament of Australia would be. And I thought, well, do you sit there and complain about it, or do you do something? And I joined the Labor Party, and I know colleagues on this side of the House have joined the Labor Party and been inspired by Gough Whitlam over the years. Now, I am one of the few fortunate people who have represented the area in both local, state and federal level. I was a councillor on Lake Macquarie Council, and I think that gave me the skills that you need to interact with people. I know, Joel, you were the member for Hunter was also a councillor, and it really gives you that understanding of grassroots politics, the things that impact on people's lives, and the member for Newcastle was also a councillor on Newcastle Council, and yes, the member for McMahon. So we've got a lot of councillors on this side. And oh, goodness, okay. Everybody on this side of the House was a councillor. I'll leave it at that. No, a really large majority of us were councillors, and we learnt the skills and learnt to understand the things that impact on people's life at that very grassroots level, and taking that grassroots level to the national agenda. I spent a little bit of time in the state, but I'd have to say that this is the absolute ultimate place that you can make a contribution to the political agenda. When I was elected to Swansea, I was actually the first member for woman from the Hunter to be elected to a lower house seat in either the state or federal parliament. But the really good news is that now 70% of all elected representatives in the Hunter are women. And that is phenomenal. Really phenomenal, and shows that Labor has a real commitment to seeing women in this parliament and women in every parliament in the country. And I can see that Joel's sitting down the front there endorsing my comments and taking credit. Yes, our candidate in Paterson, Meryl Swanson, is an absolutely outstanding woman and will make enormous contributions in this parliament. Federally, I was elected I was the 949th member to be elected to this parliament, and that shows just how few people have actually had the honour and the privilege to serve in this House. I made my first speech on the 11th of November 1998, and the 11th of November is a special date for all of us, and I see the Deputy Leader of the Opposition, she also made her speech on that date, and we were elected together back in 1998. Now, I'm only the 3rd member for the division of Shortland, which was proclaimed in 1949, and I believe I've got the 4th member for Shortland sitting right next to me now, and that's something that I'm really proud of, the fact that we've got somebody of his quality that will be taking over from me. Now, to be elected to this parliament is a privilege that few people are afforded, and I've always been mindful of that great honour. I believe that all members elected to this place enter politics because they want to make a difference. It's just that this side of the House, we've got a different idea of what makes a difference. We've got a different vision, different beliefs, different philosophies, and we all strive to see that our vision becomes a reality. And without a doubt, I believe the Labor vision is a vision that should be the reality in Australia and the one that benefits Australian people. I have always been motivated by the need to make a difference and to see that the values of social justice, equity and egalitarianship are embraced in Australia. As a federal member of parliament, it is a unique opportunity to actually achieve this, to do this. In my first speech, I emphasised that good government is inclusive. It ensures that all people share the wealth of our great nation and not just a few. It ensures that we have a society in which everyone is valued. It does not govern by fear or by marginalising one section of our society whilst advantaging another. A good government governs for all and delivers fairness, equity and social justice, not division, scaremongering and fear. And I have to say that I have sat in this House on many occasions and felt that it was a letter that was being delivered to the Australian people. We, as members of parliament, should be showing leadership, we should be giving people confidence, we shouldn't be scaring them, we shouldn't be frightening them, we shouldn't be trying to be elected by appealing to the lowest common denominator, by appealing to fear, by creating fear. In my first speech, I touched on Belmont Medicare office. One of the things I came to this parliament with was saying, Labor will reopen Belmont Medicare office. And you know what? We delivered. We delivered. We reopened Belmont Medicare office. The Howard government closed it. But, yes, shame, but there's worse to come. The Turnbull government closed it recently. Yes, they closed it. And not only did they close it, but they decided it wasn't really a closure. They were going to co-locate it to Charlestown. Now, they'd previously co-located the Charlestown Medicare office to the NDIA office. Guess where? Charlestown. And then now they were co-locating Belmont, which is 12 k's away from Charlestown. You know, just a short walk for those pensioners that live at Belmont, Swansea, and Gwanggalan. Just a short walk for them. And they were co-locating it 150 metres away from the existing Medicare office in the NDIA. So it was going to be co-located with Centrelink 150 metres away from the existing Medicare office. So poor old Belmont, they've got no Medicare office, but Charlestown's lucky. They've got two. They've got two. But the story doesn't finish there. Now, you'd think that maybe this was a cost-saving exercise. You would, wouldn't you? Cost-saving exercise? Well, guess what? I believe it cost in the vicinity of $100,000 to break the lease and to actually have the fit-out removed. Now, is that an example of good government? No, I don't think so. The member for Swan, who is a friend of mine in this place, and I know that he's got a Belmont Medicare office, and it was open at the same time as my Belmont Medicare office. But I suspect his is still open, whilst mine is now co-located 150 metres from another one. Shame. Now, the other local initiative that I mentioned in that first speech was the Fernley Track. And we lobbied the Howard government time and time again to have the Fernley Track built. And they ignored us. They weren't interested. Maybe it was because it was a Labor electorate. So I decided that I wasn't going to be put off by this. And when we were elected in 2007, not only did we build the link between Whitebridge and Redhead, but we built the link between Redhead to Belmont. And now we've got this fantastic cycle walkway that goes all the way from Belmont into Newcastle along the old rail line. So it really shows that for the people of Shortland, you need a Labor government to ensure that you get the basics. You get basics like a Medicare office. Oh, and by the way, people that were travelling to Belmont Medicare office now are finding it impossible, absolutely impossible, to contact Medicare on the hotline. Now, my proudest moment in this parliament. My proudest moment was when Kevin Rudd delivered the apology to the Solent generation. It was long overdue, and I see Jenny Macklin sitting down the front, and I know that she was very involved in that as well. It was a day where the whole of Parliament came together. These galleries were absolutely filled, and to see Aboriginal and Indigenous people throughout Australia standing up and cheering and crying, it was just unbelievable, unbelievable. And I felt so proud to be an Australian, so proud to be a member of this parliament. And it was long overdue, and it was like a veil had been lifted from our society while positioning Australia to become a better, more inclusive country. I'd been in 2000, and I'm sure many members on this side of the House on Sorry Day walked across the bridge, Sydney Harbour Bridge, and it was one of those really fantastic experiences that I've had. We got to the other end, and as we got there, there were 3 young girls from Taree, and they were hopping on the train to go back over. And they said, "We've walked over 3 times already and we're going to do it again." But it meant so much to them that 250,000 Australians turned out and walked across the bridge on that day. And then that was followed up by the apology, which I would have liked to have seen happen a lot sooner than it did. But it happened, and now we've still got work to do with closing the gap. The Closing Gap report have shown that there's been some progress made, but not enough. There's still so much work to be done there. Aboriginal Australians are getting sicker, and they get sicker and they die earlier. They're overrepresented in our prisons, and that's something that we can't be proud of as Australians, and something that we need to address. And of course, our next challenge in that area is constitutional recognition. And constitutional recognition must be something that is real, that really delivers. It doesn't need to. We need to make sure that it isn't something that just makes people feel good. It's got to really deliver. It's got to be meaningful. And that'll be a challenge for those of you that are left behind, and I know each and every one of you are definitely up to it. I've always been a politician driven by passion and by belief, and I've had the philosophy that do what you believe in and believe in what you do, and that's driven me all the way along. Now, one of the issues that I don't believe has really been addressed is the issue around asylum seekers. I think history will judge us very poorly when it comes to comes to looking at the way this parliament has treated asylum seekers. We can't leave people on Manus Island and Nauru forever. There has got to be some light at the end of the tunnel. We need to make sure that we are seen as a compassionate nation and a nation that actually does something and doesn't use asylum seekers and refugees as election fodder. There's a real challenge for members of this parliament to show that we're up to that challenge and that we can right what's this atrocity that's going on. It's not good enough, and we really need to deal with it. Another issue that I've always been quite passionate about has been live export. And my colleague Joel, I know he's been working on this very hard. I've always, Mahatma Gandhi, a quote from him is that the greatness of a nation can be judged by the way it treats its animals. And I'd have to say that animals leaving this shore for live export have been treated appallingly. Now, I know Joel's been working on this, and I know that he is very keen to see that an independent Inspector General of Animal Welfare is appointed, and Labor's got a good policy in this area. I think that unless we address this issue, it's like the asylum issue. They're issues that are out there that need to be addressed. I'd also like to, Joel, while I'm talking in your area, just another little job for you, the export of greyhounds. I think that, there we go, on to that too. Australian greyhounds, particularly being sent to Macau, are basically being sent over there to be mistreated, to be and not even euthanised in a humane way. There's no record of the greyhounds that leave this country, and I think that as a nation we need to, as a government, we need to address that. A passport system, Joel says. Well, I'm watching. I'll be watching. I won't be here, but I will be watching. And you know I tweet. Yes. All right. The next issue, a passion of mine in this parliament has been health, and it's great to see Steve Irons here, because we've both been involved in the Health Committee over a very long period of time, and we've co-chaired a lot of parliamentary friend groups. We're parliamentary friends of seniors, parliamentary friends of rare diseases, and I know that he's just as passionate about health as I am, and I believe that the government is really letting people down now. Thank you for your work in the Health Committee, and thank you for working with me, Steve. But I need to make some pretty strong comments about the government action in the area of health. Access to health should be based on a person's need. It shouldn't be based on whether or not a person can afford it. We can't afford to have a health system here in Australia like the health system that exists in the US. And I feel like I've made this speech before, talking about this. I've made many speeches, many speeches on health. But going back to the Howard government, bulk billing rates fell to 60%, and they came up to 82% when Labor was in government, and now they're on the decline again. Now we're transferring the costs. We're putting in place a GP rebate, but we're getting the GPs to collect it. We're putting in place extra charges and costs for all people that go and see health. So we've got go and see doctors. We've got Catherine King, who is a fantastic shadow health minister, and I know she's across it. And the only way Australians can stop these health changes coming into play is by voting Labor. Yeah. Education. Education is the fundamental of everything. If you don't have a good education, if you don't have access to a good education, you don't have an access to a quality of life that those of us that are afforded a good education have. And to have a system where some people are denied that access to the highest quality of education is unacceptable. Gonski needs to be fully funded. It needs to be put in place to help the most disadvantaged students within schools within Australia. So, once again, another job, and we've got Amanda here, who I know is well and truly up to the task. The NBN, well, Pat will be taking up the fight on the NBN. The rollout in our area has been abysmal. And my office, the first week that the NBN was rolled out, we had 200 people that lodged complaints because they lost their phone line, they lost their computer, and on it went. And some 2 months later were still without a phone, without a computer. So I'm very confident that Pat will take up that issue. Climate change, well, I think climate change may be a dirty word at the moment, is it? Does it exist or doesn't it exist? No, on this side of the House, we're committed, absolutely committed to turning it around. The challenge is for those on the other side to match our commitment, because it is of vital importance to not just Australia, the whole of the world. I was in the Pacific recently, at the Pacific Women's Forum, and at that forum the women voted to have climate change as the agenda item for next year's Pacific Women's Forum. So that's putting it on the agenda and saying how important it is. Domestic violence, well, how can we address domestic violence when funding's been cut? That's right. It is so important. You can't have a situation where 2 women in Australia are being killed every day. Once again, I know that we on this side are committed to seeing that that's well and truly addressed. And one of my favourites has always been a republic. And that's something that I'm going to work on once I leave this place. Australia needs to be a republic. We need to have our own Australian head of state. There.
President Hall.
No, don't think I'm presidential material, Joel. Remember, I've got that opinion that I've always got to express. I'd like to see Palestine recognised. I think that that's been far too long that we've allowed that dreadful situation to exist. I've visited Gaza, I've seen the blockade, I've seen the appalling conditions that people are living in there, and it makes me really sad that that's been allowed to continue. That now brings me to unions and penalty rates, wages, and an area that's a real difference between us and the other side. When I came into this place, I mentioned the MUA, we had the Patrick's dispute. Now we've got work choices on water. And I know that Anthony Albanese, sitting down the front there, is really taking it up to the government, because it's not right that Australian seafarers should be losing their jobs so as that foreign seafarers can be employed on ships working in Australian waters. We should be about Australian jobs in this place. We should be about ensuring that workers get a fair wage. The other union that I mentioned at the time was the CFMEU. Now, where this parliament's about to be dissolved because of the Trade Union Royal Commission, and the CFMEU figured very strongly in that. Now, I have to say, there's two arms of that union that I've worked with closely over the years, and in my previous life as a rehab counsellor, I know how important workplace safety is. And without the work of the CFMEU going into those workplaces, looking at the work safety that takes place on those business sites, there would be far more people losing their lives. And I know that that union supports the families of those that lose their lives. So they get in there, they give those families money, they support them over a long period of time. It's really important that we have a balance between unions and employers. We need to have unions to make sure that employers really do the right thing on their work site. And I'm sorry to those opposite. I know that what I'm saying necessarily doesn't fit in with what you believe, but it's something that I'm quite passionate about. And of course there's the CFMEU Mining that have been fantastic supporters over the years and who have done so much in one of the most dangerous industries. Both building and mining are two of the most dangerous industries, highest fatalities, highest rates of injuries in Australia. So it's I've got to keep on. Yes, I recognise the good work that they do and give them my full support. Now I come to the hard part. I'd like to firstly thank the Labor Party members who pre-selected me to represent them in 1998. And who have continued to support me. Pat's got some tissues down there that he's supposed to shake at this particular time. Yes. And they've always been my eyes, my ears, my heart when I'm away from the electorate. I have wonderful branch members that go out there. They do what they do because they believe in Labor. They believe in what we do here. Each and every one of us has a responsibility to those wonderful branch members, and I thank them from the bottom of my heart. They have been wonderful. Next, I'd like to thank the wonderful people of Shortland. Another drink. That's gin, I'm told. Could get interesting. You've been my inspiration, my motivation. Tissues. He's not doing a very good job. My motivation has been to make your lives better and to have your voices heard in Canberra. You will always be in my heart. Thank you for the trust that you've placed in me. I've had the privilege to share your lives, to offer assistance, for you to offer me assistance, to build friendships and relationships that will last well past my time in this parliament. Also, I'd like to thank the wonderful community groups and volunteers in Shortland. I've worked with so many: the schools, the sporting groups, the RSLs, Meals on Wheels, pensioners, seniors groups, men's sheds, CWA, environment groups, caring groups, and so many others. You've always made me feel welcome, and I've always felt like I'm a part of who you are. Now, this is going to be even harder. I now turn to my incredible staff. As we all know, we are nothing without our staff. First, I'll touch on Kathy. Kathy worked with me when I was a state member for Swansea, and she's worked with me basically all the time I've been the federal member for Shortland. She's one of the most incredibly loyal and strong people you will ever meet. She's nearly finished studying to become a social worker, and she is just an incredible person that will always be my friend. Next, I've got Chris, who bosses me, tells me what to do, tells me where to go, tells me how I should do it, and tries to organise me. He's the extreme boss, but I think we all need a Chris to tell us where to go and how to do it. Vicky, who probably I get the most thank you calls in my office about, because she sends out the birthday letters to people and the congrat messages. She handles all requests for Order of Australia, and she's been with me practically all the time. Family, both family. Next is Lisa, media person extraordinaire. She's also found herself another job. She's going to be working with Urban Growth at their Parramatta office. She is a phenomenal media person and a person of great calibre, and they're very lucky to have Lisa. Alex is sitting up there. He works part-time, uni student, studying law, and he is going to be a fantastic Labor Party member. He's got a really big future in front of him. Mark, I know that people here know Mark, and particularly how we had a very close relationship with Nola's office. Mark can't be here with me today. His wife's very ill, and people on this side absolutely adored Mark when he was here, and he will always be very special, and he has made enormous contributions. Melanie would be here today, but she couldn't be because she's attending a funeral. Last Tuesday we had a sporting champions presentation in the office, and whilst we were conducting this presentation, and there were a lot of people that received awards from the Novocassian Swimming Club, young Jade Frith was hit by a car crossing the road and lost her life. The funeral was on at 3 o'clock today, and I'd like to put in this speech a call for traffic lights to be installed in that area to make it safe, because it's right near Warners Bay High School. Tracy Blair, Tracy's up there. Tracy's comes in on a Thursday and Friday into the office. She is a volunteer extraordinaire, and she just makes our office so fantastic. Thank you, Tracy, and thank you, Lorraine, for bringing her down today. We've also got Crystal Brown, who comes in on a Friday too and does some volunteer work. Alex Craig is sitting up there, and Alex and I had a photo taken when she came down here. She's looking all embarrassed, but I love embarrassing people. Had a photo taken when she came down here in Year 6. Now she works for Michelle, and I'm sure that Michelle would say what a fantastic staff member she is, talented, and just icing on the cake, ACT Young Environmentalist of the Year. Congratulations. Congratulations. So you can see I've been very, very lucky to have some wonderful people around me. But there's one I haven't forgotten, and it's Nelson. Everybody knows Nelson. Nelson was working in the Whip's office, and he made sure everybody got there on time, and thank you for coming along today, Nelson. I've got to also acknowledge Chad Griffiths, who's a councillor on Lake Macquarie Council and who has done so much work for me as campaign director over the years, and John Jenkins, who's been the president of the FEC. Only 2 more pages, sorry guys. Thursday Club. Every Thursday I have a group of guys come along, Adrian Vaughan, Jim Bridge, Jim Anning, Paul Daly, John Gubbard, Kevin McFadden, Tony Dybel and Des McMeekin, to put together all my books that I hand out, and they sit in that back room and they argue with each other, and they have very, very lively discussions, just like my granddaughter is up there. Sorry, Ella, I didn't mean to bore you. And they always leave a seat at the table for Wal Drain, who was a foundation member of the Thursday Club. And Wal died a few years ago, and I made the mistake of walking into to the room and sitting in Wal's chair one Thursday, I was told to get up and go very, very quickly. I have to acknowledge the fantastic support I've received from Anna George. I mean, everybody on this side of the house knows how wonderful Anna is, and Deborah Biggs. Sitting up in the gallery is Roger Price. Roger and I were whips together, and we were quite a team. It was Roger Price, myself and Chris Hayes, who is now the chief whip. And we were a pretty mean team. I have to acknowledge both Roger and Chris, and thank you, Roger, for coming down today. That's wonderful. That'll learn you. That's what he always says, that'll learn you. I'm really making the most of this last speech, aren't I? Sorry. That now brings me to my wonderful family. When I was elected to this parliament, my daughter Shane, who's disappeared with her daughter out of here, and son Chris were at university, and none of my children were married. And if you look up into that gallery, you can see that there's lots of little people. And they've been born while I've been down here. And I've been really lucky because when I've come down here, I've had my daughter and her husband Chris live here, and I've been able to spend time with them. Now, Lindsay, my husband, he's sitting there because he thinks I'm going to tell the story of one election day. I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you that the one person on this particular election day I got a letter of complaint about happened to be a person that was handing out that had grey hair at a particular school that Lindsay was at that particular time. And I had to write this very apologetic letter saying I can't imagine who it could have been. But I'm not going to tell anyone that. No, that story's for another time. But Lindsay's been fantastic. He's always been there to support me. He's a door knocker extraordinaire, Pat. You're going to use him, I'm sure. He loves door knocking. I'm not going to tell you the door knocking story. I'll tell you that later. No, not now. Maybe that's why he likes door knocking. Now, Peter, my eldest son, doesn't come to Parliament very much, but he's always telling me what we should do. Now, if we need some advice, go and talk to Peter because he's got very strong opinions. And he's quite critical at times, I must say, but he always votes Labor. And he's got the best position for a sign in the electorate. So thank you, Peter, and thank you so much for coming down today. He's got with him, he's now got 3 daughters. He's got Selena, who actually speaks 3 languages, or maybe even 4. She speaks English, Cantonese, she speaks her grandmother's dialect, and she speaks Mandarin as well. One of my other grandchildren, Jessica, who I'll get to in a moment, was telling me how Selena was actually giving them lessons in Cantonese. So that's pretty special. Next, and Selena's got her sister Mianne and Macy, who aren't here. Chris, he's got Sam and Jessica. Where's Sam? Sam wanted me to give a speech like you, Chris Bowen. He thought that you made a fantastic contribution today, and he told me to go down there and be strong and give a Chris Bowen speech. He's very, very interested in politics, and he tells me that he knows more about politics than anyone in his school, including his teachers. Jessica, my beautiful Jessica. Jessica gave me one of the most interesting campaigns I ever had, and at that particular time she ended up in hospital with a multi-resistant staph infection. She nearly lost her life, and I did most of my campaign in that election around John Hunter Hospital. She's a very special girl very bright and I call her my treasure. Next it brings me to Chris. Chris has always been there and he's the rock in the family. Shane and Chris. Now Shane has disappeared yet again. Chris is her husband. He's sitting up there with Asher, and Asher is a little boy that always likes to do everything the right way. And I forgot you, Johnny. Johnny, you're very special too. Johnny, hi Johnny. and next I've got Hallie. Hallie, who's, hello Hal. Hallie's Miss Personality. Asher always tells us how we should do things, and he used to always run and tell tales on Lindsay because he used to say bloody. Is that unparliamentary? It's not, is it? Not now.
Not today.
He'd go and say bloody, and he'd go and tell his mother and say that Poppy used bad language. So, yes, and finally Ella, who has taken Shane out of here. So I can't, of course, forget my sister Robin. Robin's here today. She's come all the way from Nambucca Heads. She's my last remaining blood relative and very important to me. At my first speech, my mother was here, but unfortunately she's no longer here, and Robin embodies my mother. So thank you, Robin. Finally, nearly finally anyhow, thank you to all the staff at Parliament who make it possible for us to do our jobs, the attendants who look after us so well, the clerks, the sergeant's office, the com car drivers, the cleaners, the table office, the staff there, the catering staff, and every other person that makes this place very special. I also thank the committee secretariats and staff that work in the committees. Now it's time for me to sit down. But before I do, I want to pledge my 100% support to have a Shortland Labor government elected. Yeah. The Labor team has the policies that will make Australia great. Inclusive policies that provide opportunity for all Australians, and Bill Shorten will be a fantastic Prime Minister. Now I say that I didn't vote for Bill. I voted for Albo, my friend, the person that's given me so much support throughout my political career. Whenever I needed support or whenever I had a problem, I could always go to Albo. Albo is absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Albo, for everything that you've done over the years. I've really appreciated it. Yeah. Finally, and these are my final words, I have to say something about Pat Conroy.
You don't.
Pat, no, I will. You can't keep me quiet. This is the last time. Pat will be the next member for Shortland, and he will continue to make an enormous contribution in this parliament. Anyone that's seen him operate here will know that he is a quality member of Parliament, quality politician, quality parliamentarian, and he will bring so much to Australia. The people of Shortland are very lucky that Pat will be their next member. I feel confident in being able to stand down and not recontest the next election when there's Pat Conroy to follow on. Thank you, Pat. You're so special. He's a person with the strongest possible Labor values, and I know he'll deliver to all the people in Shortland and to Australia. Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. It's been an incredible experience, and I'll finish where I start, and that is by saying what an honour it has been to serve the people of Shortland. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The question is that the address be agreed to, and I call